Hey friend, you aren't leaving your firm just to work nonstop and make less money.
You wanted freedom, fulfillment, and a practice that actually supports your life.
Welcome to Off the Clock, the podcast for lawyers and law firm owners who are ready to break up with the billable hour
and build a profitable, joyful, client-loving practice that loves you back.
We're Gwen Griggs
and Whitney Harper,
lawyers, law firm founders, and co-creators of ADVOS Pro.
Each episode, we share stories, strategies, and bold steps to help you stop surviving and start thriving on your own terms.
So let's get you off the clock and into a practice you're meant to build.
Gwen, I am so excited for today's conversation. One of our favorite topics, and it's a weird one to have as a favorite, but we're talking metrics today. And I know you and I are big believers that you get what you measure, and the metrics really matter. So you better measure what matters. And let's just dive in. I think the place to start here is I would love to hear your experience of kind of the traditional law firm and what they're typically measuring. What are the metrics that the traditional model law firm is looking at?
Yes, this is so near and dear to our heart. We're gold star A+ students, which means we're going to do the thing that we measure, and taking a look at the behaviors and the activities, and is it driving the result that you really want? And my experience early in big law, we bill by the hour, and I think most of our profession and other professions track how much time did it take you to do something. And then they get into things like how much was actually billed, and what was the realization rate, and what is the effective rate. And one of my favorites, I say facetiously, is origination credit, right? Like what you're creating within a firm when you track origination credit is some awkward conversations within the firm about
at best.
At best. At best. Yes. And hurt feelings and just a whole lot of churn that is entirely unnecessary, right? Like if you look at it as a business and you say, this is the business, and the business needs to look at how profitable it is and then build out from profit, right? We're not talking about why something was originated or why it wasn't, and how I'm going to give someone different credit. We really borrowed a lot from our years as in business, right? That looked at KPIs are not set in stone. They are what are we trying to measure, which may change quarter to quarter.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I mean, you mentioned sort of that awkward dynamic about origination credit, but there's also just like other issues that those kinds of KPIs create. Set aside the fact that there's misalignment between the client and the lawyer when you bill by the hour, and when that's the metric and that's what people want to give more of because they are gold star seekers, then, that's misalignment and that's a problem. But there's also just this, when you really think about it, the time suck of the billable hour metric and how much time is wasted trying to get the hourly billing to match up so that when you say you talk to the client for 15 minutes, I say the same thing on the same date. And, all of those things where, I mean, gosh, the amount of time lawyers and law firms are spending trying to get the billing right when it's not even billing in a way that the clients care about. It's just wild.
Exactly. And I honestly, I think we could spend the entire episode, right, talking about, right, like all of the stories. We have so many stories of times when we have sent work to a big law firm, and then the next thing that came up, we knew the specialist, so we went to the specialist and got a call back from the original lawyer to say, you need, when you send it, you need to make sure that you send it through me, so I get origination credit. And I thought,
right,
like, in that sense, we're the client in a sense. And I was like,
it's a terrible
record feeling, right?
Yes.
It's like, I'm trying to just send you work. Why are you making it harder for me to do that?
Yeah, no, it's wild. It has this very like gatekeeping, cloak and dagger feel that nobody wants as a client. And I'm sure it's not fun for the lawyers inside either, right? To have to like arm wrestle every time and ugh,
Yeah. And I
gross.
do think our years in business where we looked at the KPI and we looked at what is the goal and then how are we going to measure that we achieve the goal? And the goal, obviously there are some standards, right? Revenue, profit. But you know, every so often you're going to look at how many contracts did we get through the system if you're in the legal department, or what's payroll looking like, or employee. There are other numbers like revenue per employee, and the
Yeah.
magic that happens when you really truly have a team that's working together to drive those metrics. I just have never seen it happen that way within a law firm because, in a sense, each person in a law firm is their own billing unit.
But
So,
even then, it's interesting if you think about like what law firms say they care about. If you look at their websites and they're like, you know, client experience or outcomes or what expertise, whatever it is that they talk about that sounds like the metrics they care about. If you really look under the hood, if you ask those law firms, how are you measuring those results? How are you measuring whether or not your business is designed to deliver those results and how you're doing on it? I think in most cases they're really not. What they're measuring is just the how many hours did we bill and how much of that did we get paid for and who gets credit for it, right? It's a very who gets credit for what internally sort of focused system. And nobody's out there measuring. We say we want thrilled clients, but are our clients actually thrilled? You know?
absolutely. Right. I couldn't agree. And that couldn't agree more. And that we see that with our ADVOS Pro clients. Like one of my favorite questions is your website says this is your mission. These are your pillars. This is your core values. If that's your core value, what metric are you using to measure it? Because otherwise it's just words on a website.
Yeah. And I think if you've done the work, I think there are a lot of lawyers out there who really have started to think about what they want from their practice, from their firm, why they're doing what they're doing, what they care about. And they don't intend for those core values to be lip service. It just hasn't that how do I make it more than lip service hasn't really sunk in. That how is just missing. And I think one of the fun things about our law practice is that we started with that sort of measure what matters. And you're going to get more of what you measure. So be careful what you measure mentality. And we said, we have these pillars, we have these things we care about. And for us, strong community, thrilled clients, thriving team, outsized results. And so then we had to dig in and say, okay, how will we measure those? Do you want to talk a little bit about kind of some of the metrics we've landed on for those?
For sure. And I'll say too that those pillars are translatable in almost any service business, right? Thrilled clients, thriving team, outsized results, and a strong community, has a corollary with marketing and sales, right? Because
And impact too.
and impact, absolutely. Um, and so looking at those and how do we measure, and each quarter it might be different. Like strong community sometimes in our world means how many one-on-ones did we have? What's the
Right.
metric? But maybe that quarter, that's not the most important thing, right? So maybe we need to look at, or you have a different type of business and your LinkedIn connections, or the firm's LinkedIn connections. Like there's not a one size fits all. You're looking at what kind of business are you engaged in, and how are you getting your clients. That number that might change.
Mm-hmm.
So
For sure. Thrilled clients is my favorite one to measure, right? I love um, what we've learned from measuring that metric. And I say it's my favorite to measure in part because we have a great thrilled client score, but really also I mean it when I say I love what we've learned there. We use the NPS model, and so if you're not familiar with that by name, I'm sure you're familiar with it. by experience, because I think everyone has answered no fewer than 1,000,000 times the NPS question, which
Mm.
is how likely are you to recommend XYZ company to a friend or colleague on a scale of 0 to 10? And the nines and tens are promoters, the sevens and eights are passives, and the six and below are detractors. And so there's some math behind it, but on a scale of -100 to +100, you get your result. And, you know, spoiler alert, sad state of affairs, the legal industry is, I think the most recent average was like in the mid 30s as a score, which is up some from where it used to be a few years ago in the mid 20s,
Mhm.
but still a sad score. And ours has been mid 90s for a really long time. But we learned something from an early score that was
That is
not a
such a
promoter.
great this to me, this is such a great story of, um, exactly that. Like, you're not doing it just to get the gold star. You're doing it to improve your business every single time.
Yeah. So it's, vanity metrics aren't useful, right? And we were really committed to having a high client satisfaction score, um, but also being honest about what our scores were and why. And so we had early on, I'm just going to tell the story because I think
Yeah.
it's so powerful. Um, Early on, we had a client of a law firm who gave us a zero, I think, two or a zero, something awful. And
In the detractor category,
yes,
whatever it
yes,
was. Yes.
yeah. And had some commentary about it that was, somewhat helpful for us to understand why she'd given us the score she gave us. And so we saw the score and went, oh, that hurts. And our response was that we wrote her a note, sent her an email, I think, or maybe a handwritten card. I don't know.
I think you wrote a handwritten card, if I recall correctly. Yes.
That's probably right. But wrote her a note and just thanked her for the honest feedback, right? It takes time and energy for someone to be willing to give you hard feedback. And she could have just walked away and not told us why it didn't work for her, or why it was not the experience she'd hoped for, but she didn't. So she, took the time and energy to give us the feedback, and we thanked her for it and said, your feedback has helped us to understand who we serve really well and where we don't serve people really well. And we're grateful for that. And so then she responded and was super gracious, and we've had such a good relationship with her and her firm since then. We've been on her podcast. We've had events together and spoken at things together. It's been a remarkable relationship with a ton of respect for each other, even when we realize that we're probably not a great fit for her as her lawyers and for her business as lawyers. Um, but we love what she's up to and she loves what we're up to, and we're all out there trying to shake up the space together. So great outcome. And it really did help us get clear on a more aligned distinction around who our ideal client is and who we're going to say, we're probably not the right fit when we meet with people.
Yeah. That part is one of the benefits that I think is so powerful is, we talk to people about who is their ideal client, and they build something thinking they know their ideal client. And yes, they probably have a lot of ideal clients, but the experience of someone who is not an ideal client and the person giving you that feedback just helps immensely better understand who your ideal client is, because you've now figured out who they're not. And in
Yeah.
that example for us, it was Whitney and I both had been part of fairly substantial businesses with a lot of pressure to grow. And so we are wired to look at a business and help and think about how is this business going to scale and grow. And there are plenty of businesses out there that are continuing to grow at a very healthy pace, but probably never intend to sell. And our system is a lot for that.
Yeah.
So getting that feedback and then, doing a better job of looking at other clients that come in and being able to know like this, what we have and what we've built and the meeting cadence and the checklists and all of the things that we've built are going to be too heavy
Yeah.
for some clients. They're not going to be the right fit. So, like, just as going a little deeper into that, right? It's not just the metric for the metric's sake. It's also
Mm-mm.
because you're able to use those experiences to build a better business and
Yeah.
continue evolving, continue iterating. And I also think the hourly billing model by its nature says, I'm not going to spend time if it's not billable. Like,
Right.
everything that is not a
Yes.
billable hour is taking away from what could be revenue producing and billable hour and the metric that matters and the metrics that's on the scoreboard and everyone can see. And so there's a tremendous amount of social pressure to make sure that you're at the top of the list. And you're not going to, if you are, then you're not spending the time looking at NPS scores or writing handwritten notes or
Yeah.
iterating your business model continually. I think that's one of the parts of it that has the really detrimental effect is you're not evolving your business. Your business is the same as it was 20 years ago and will be the same in the next 10 or 20 years unless some of the disruption that we're seeing happen actually is taken to heart.
Absolutely. Well, and I think too, part of the lesson we learned from getting that low score, taking action on it, and being honest internally about it is that our team, like we saw for ourselves, that we really were committed to being accountable to those things that mattered to us, that we had said this matters, and so we're going to track it and not just like, it was a zero, they were not our ideal client anyway, we'll just take that off the score. Like, nope, that stayed on the average of the scores, and we dealt with it, and the team saw that we meant it and that we were going to track the metric honestly and really take it seriously. And I think that when you see that and when you have that level of visibility in your business, in your law firm, it changes the culture in a really cool way. Really, really cool way.
Yeah. Well, it's doing what you said you're going to do, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you say these are the things that matter, then what decisions are you making that are in alignment with those pillars that you said mattered?
Hmm.
And if thrilled clients really matters when you have someone who's not a thrilled client, like, for the entire team to see how we handled that. And the opposite's also true. We in our weekly meeting share, the tens and Whitney's awesome and all
Yeah.
of the accolades that come along with the tens that we get. We share those with the client or with our team as well, so they can see the value, that pillar in action. They can
Yes.
see, like, we mean it and we're celebrating it and we're congratulating the team when it's some of the work that the team did that really helped us achieve
Yeah.
that that great score from our
Everybody shares in the glow, for
hmm
sure. For sure. So, if we're thinking about measuring what matters and law firm metrics, if somebody's listening to this one and thinking, okay, great message, but how do I get started thinking about what metrics I should measure or like, an action step from this? What would you recommend, Gwen? You always have such good ideas on that.
Well, not to beat a dead horse, but maybe a little, right? Like, you can tell we are passionate about NPS score. And so if that is something that I think every professional service firm cares very deeply about their reputation, their referral sources, their relationships. And so, and there are ways to do it in a really lightweight way. I know we have some resources in the ADVOS.
Mhm.
And so that's a great one that comes to mind immediately. Whitney, are there other first steps that you can think of that?
I think just like sitting down with yourself and thinking about what are the points in a client relationship where, like, I think asking, clients, how are we doing? Would you recommend us? Any feedback for us? Just places where you can ask that question and kind of build it into your process and empower your team to ask the question and to gather that feedback and bring it back to the group. so you can take action on it. It's really not hard to do. It's not as scary as it feels. It builds great client relationships when they understand that you're asking because you actually do want the feedback and you want to do something with it. And people love to be asked about themselves and their opinions, right? So it's a really good tool to use. And you're right. I think we have some great resources available on our website, advospro.com, or in the Advosphere, which is our private community for lawyers and law firm owners. And would love to see more people really thinking deeply about what the metrics are that matter in their firms.
Yeah. And sharing with us, right? Sharing with us in the Advosphere, right? There's a conversation. I think there's even a post about the NPS score. And so contributing to that and sharing what it is you do in your firm, or books you've read, or anything that helps you measure what matters.
So here's to measuring what matters. Really fun conversation, Gwen. Thanks so much.
Great. This was great. Thanks so much.
Thanks for joining us on Off the Clock. If you're ready to design a law practice that's profitable, joyful, and built around your life, not just your clients,
come check out The Path to Promance and take the Promance scorecard at advospro.com.
And if this episode spoke to you, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another lawyer who needs to hear it.
You deserve a practice that loves you back. Let's build it together.